When I look back at the men I chose to love, it's clear now. I wasn't choosing with my heart. I was choosing with my trauma. I was a dismissive, avoidant attachment style woman who had no clue of what a healthy, secured attachment style of loving was. Welcome, my loves, to the Hardened and Healed Podcast. Hey, loves, I'm home. Let's sit on down. Hey, loves, and thank you for joining me to the first episode of Hardened and Healed Podcast. This is the podcast where we tap into childhood trauma and how it affects us personally in our day-to-day as we enter our adulthood life. Now, if you think that you haven't been affected by childhood trauma, keep watching. I definitely will change your mind about that. First off, let's start talking about childhood trauma and what that looks like. So childhood trauma can be as early as the actual womb. So this isn't an experience that you actually would remember, but an experience that you've had. So you were reared between bickering parents who fought and yelled and screamed. They call it, if you were in the womb at this time, your trauma started very, very early. We also have childhood trauma that actually is hereditary. So it started from our birth mother who's carrying us. The trauma that they have, it's almost inducted into us at the point of conception. So though there may have not been any bickering or anything between the parents, they already have a spirit of trauma prior to the birthing process. So that is also a form of trauma that we experience, but that we don't talk about. Next is the trauma right after birth. So this is usually between birth and maybe about 18 months or so. So of course it's trauma that you don't remember, but you actually experience. And it could be all types of trauma. One of the traumas that I know that we don't speak about enough is emotional trauma. The impact of emotional trauma is equally as strong as physical, sexual, verbal, and mental abuse. Now, some people will beg to differ with that because they've experienced the other types of trauma and they feel like they have experienced the worst type. But I will tell you that a lot of times with some of the traumas, changing the environment, it stops the trauma from continuing, but the effect is already done. When it comes to emotional trauma, however, a lot of times you don't escape the environment because you don't realize that the environment is in fact your trauma. You don't realize that the person or persons are constantly impacting you in a traumatic way. It's kind of like when people say silent killer. That is very symbolic of emotional trauma. A lot of marriages, a lot of parental relationships, siblings, a lot of interpersonal relationships experience emotional trauma. And it goes on for years. Sometimes people taking it to their grave. So I want to talk about the topic, of course, right? Let's just jump right into it. So why do we have multiple baby daddies? I'm going to tell you here first. It's trauma. It is definitely childhood trauma. And am I saying that you had a bad mom or a bad dad or a bad life coming up? No. But what I am saying is that there is a lot that has happened that impacted your not only choices, but also your expectations, because we choose based on our expectations. And so a lot of times we choose partners or just people that we think will fit in the narrative that has already been created for us. And I'm not talking about the narrative that God created. We sometimes are so far and removed from what God has for us that we adopt our own pathways that have already been misguided by someone that was over us, usually our overseer. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a biological parent. It could be whoever raised you, whether it was Big Mama, Mama, Mima, whatever you want to call it. There was Papa, Uncle them, whoever it was. It's not really specific to just your biological parent, because we do know that a lot of people have not grown up with biological parents, but in fact still have childhood trauma. So first off, it definitely throws off your picker. And when I say picker, I just mean how you determine who you're going to choose to partner with, whether it's initially just for sex or whether it's for long-term relationship. And so based on the traumas that you have, is really going to determine who do you think is compatible for you. And a lot of times we trauma bond. That is something we don't talk enough about. Trauma bonding is epic. It is the most toxic situation that you could be in because you are now wrapping yourself into someone who is suffering from traumatic experiences themselves. So an example, I have 3 baby daddies. I hate the word baby daddies. Fathers of my children. It just doesn't really matter how you spin it. It just doesn't sound like the greatest thing. So when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to me too, right? This is a us thing, right? And so some people have upwards of 5 and 6, and this is a judgment-free zone. But what happens is that it just always comes across as we were just super promiscuous and we would just sleep with anybody, and it's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. When in fact, most circumstances, that isn't true. It's far from true. A lot of times what happens is that you enter into a relationship that had red flags or some type of toxicity brewing in the background, and you were unaware of it because, again, your picker is off, right? And so when you're looking for love or connection or companionship, some things aren't abundantly clear. It's not as obvious as people would think. And so when you conceive and you make the grown woman decision to keep that child, because there's a lot of women who don't. They realize that it's not the greatest situation to bring a child into, and so they make a different decision. But that's not who we're talking to. We're talking to the moms that said, these are my children. I had them. I'm going to keep them, and I'm going to do the best that I can. So I will say that childhood trauma for me allowed me to partner with an anxious attachment style male, a narcissistic male, and then a partially, or maybe, I'm not even certain, secure male. And so the breakdown of that is that we know that everybody has these different personality traits, right? And most of it is on your environment, your background, things of that sort. And of course, some things are generational. So let's start with the attachment style. So if you are not familiar with your attachment style, there are plenty of tests out there that you can actually take and find out. That is going to be really the aha moment for you. That is how you get to understand, first off, who you are and why you've chosen the people that you've chosen. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. So there are 2 attachment styles, and then there's an umbrella under one of them. So there's secure attachment style, which is basically a healthy way of attaching and communicating in a relationship. It just means that you have a good way of communicating. You have realistic expectations of your partner, and you know what it is to give and receive. You can go a little bit more depth in that, but I would suggest definitely researching secure attachment. And then there's insecure attachment. So that is the area that mostly all of us fall under at some point in time in our lives. Usually we kind of start off that way, and then life kind of navigates us under these different characteristics. So there is the anxious, there is the fearful, there is the dismissive, and then there is the disorganized avoidant. So the disorganized avoidant is going to be a combination of all the avoidant attachment styles. Who am I? I am now secured. So I used to be a dismissive avoidant, and y'all, can we just get into dismissive avoidant? Let me just give you tea on dismissive avoidance. So I got my notes. Let me pull up my notes so I can actually give you the correct definition of a dismissive avoidant. It's going to blow your mind. And for some of you, it's going to be an aha. Okay, guys, I had to get in close and personal for this because this is going to be some tea. You won't even understand why you choose who you choose until you figure out who you are. So I was a dismissive avoidant. Dismissive avoidant attachment style is an insecure attachment style characterized by a preference for independence and a tendency to avoid emotional closeness. It's a defense mechanism against the belief that others will abandon or disappoint them. People with this style may avoid relationships. They may not pursue romantic relationships or actively avoid them. So they won't pursue them in a way of seriousness, right? So that doesn't mean that they don't want companionship and that they're not gonna mix and mingle. But it just means that because of the fear of being abandoned, it's going to be one of the reasons why they don't go all the way in those relationships. So you are either this person or with this person. They struggle with intimacy. They have a difficulty opening up emotionally and feel uncomfortable when others try to get close. So this does not mean that they are unable to have sex. Don't mistake that. Struggle with intimacy just means in a deeper connection. So these are the people that can have sex, get up, smile, and talk to you later, right? This is not going to be your cuddle buddy. You're not playing toesies or footsies under the cover. You're not doing all that. This is a means to an end, right? We already know what the intentions are. We know what we expect to get out of it, and that is it. Be emotionally distant. They may keep their emotions and thoughts to themselves, appearing emotionally unavailable. And I want to really specify appearing emotionally unavailable, because emotionally they are available. You just will never know. So that stays internal. They do all that decompressing, all that stressing, and all that stuff internally. So you never see it. It's like they got their poker face on, right? They kind of give a very nonchalant attitude to things that affect you emotionally. They seem to be unbothered. And you're just like, what is it with this person? Next, be self-reliant. This is a definite asterisk I would like to put out there when it says be self-reliant. Because for women, this is when we women say stuff like, I'm independent. I don't need no man. I'm self-sufficient. I pay all my bills. This might be you, boo. It says they may avoid relying on others for support. So why this actually ends up being an issue as well is because you really do want to be supportive, right? Who don't want the man that's buying them the Benz? Who don't want the man that's showering them with gifts and admirations and trips and all that stuff? Well, you can't get that being this person, because if you can do it all yourself, then there ain't a man that can take your place. I'm going to tell you that now, sis. Using distancing behaviors. They may flirt with others, ignore their partners, calls or texts, or make unilateral decisions to push their partner away. This is the self-sabotage, right? So when you're making these unilateral decisions and pushing your partner away, it's not really that you don't want them to be there. They're just in a space of yours that you don't care to share. Like they're starting to get in close. So you start picking. You start finding little issues. They showed up 3 minutes too late or 2 minutes too early, or just anything that you can come up with that would say, I need to push pause and I may need to find interest elsewhere. Have a negative view of relationships. They may accuse partners of being too needy. So now you end up with someone who is affectionate or clingy or loving or just whatever it is, and it becomes to be too much. And so now you have an issue with the neediness. And it could just be something as simple as they call you in the morning to see how your day's going. And you're like, gosh, you just got to hear my voice. Like, I'm going to be home later. Can I just talk to you when I get home later? Yeah, this might be you. Minimize their partner's feelings. Oh, baby. They may keep their secrets from their partners to engage in affairs. So I guess a better way to say that, they may keep their secrets from their partners or engage in affairs. So I guess secrets would more or less be like things that maybe they're not confident about expressing, like maybe wanting more sex out of their partner, or maybe wanting more hugs or more words of affirmation. And so because they don't know how to ask that, because they're so independent, then they allow someone else who naturally does it to do it for them. This is where affairs come in, right? So it's like, you don't tell me that you love me, or you don't hug me when I come through the door, even though I'm not asking you and I'm not telling you to, but you don't naturally do it. And then here's Joe Blow over here that like is excited every time he sees me, or Cindy Lou is like jumping on my back, you know, and blowing up my phone because she just can't get enough of me. So that's how the affairs come into play. And then they end relationships. They may end relationships to regain their sense of freedom. So that part is probably the straw that breaks the camel back. Because in essence, what's happening is all of these other little triggers are going on within the relationship. And then the dismissive avoidant just decides, oh, this is too much. Whether it's all these things on this list or one or two things, it's too much. The relationship needs to come to an end. And really what it is they just now need space. They just need space. They just need to be able to come and go as they please. They don't want to answer to anybody. They don't have to give a record of their whereabouts or what they're doing or what their plans are. These people tend to be very vague. Like you ask, hey, what you got going on this weekend? They want to know why. They can't even answer the question. They just want to know why. Like, why do you need to know? They are the type of people that something is said to them. They are easily offended. You'll never know, but they're offended by it. And then you find out because they go ghost, right? They're the hardest people to reach at this point. So now you're trying to call them. You're not getting any answer. You're trying to figure out like, hey, like, what's going on? Like everything was good. Something that would ordinarily just be, a natural disagreement or mixed communication for them is a cutoff. Like, you messed up, we're done. So I was this person, embarrassingly enough. And I'm not saying that any other dismissive avoidance should be embarrassed, but I am embarrassed or was embarrassed or maybe even still embarrassed because I treated people that I really, really loved like this, like very cold, very cut off, very mechanical, right? And so there were a lot of things that I did because I knew to do it, but it wasn't really in my heart to do. So when it came to picking a partner or being drawn or attracted to certain, I had a type. Or at least, to be honest, it's even hard to say that I had a type because I've dated different types. But I always remained the same. So when I thought I had a type and I would select that type of person, like I felt like I want the nice guy. I want the nice guy that's not too pushy. He's not aggressive. He may not necessarily be an alpha male, but he's very confident and he's supportive. I realized that I began to be too much for that type of person. They would see me and then be like, as strong spirited and as strong of a personality as this woman has, there's no way that she's really interested in me. And so then they would lack confidence in my interests. Ain't that crazy? Like, I'm interested in you and you trying to tell me like, I got it going on. There's no way I want you. I do. But what would happen is usually those people who are able to stay are probably anxious or fearful avoidant. And we'll get into that in the next episode. But what happens is that we are drawn to people who are going to give us the right amount of space, right? But they're also going to give us the right amount of attention. The problem is that we only need it in spurts. So we don't want to be attended to all the time. And why am I saying we? Because I'm not this person anymore. So I'm going to say they. They don't want to be attended to 24/7, right? Just at their convenience. So let me play this out, what this looks like. You're dating someone. You get to know them. They've kind of given you the chase. So you like that because they're like really, really interested. So, because of course, at first you're going to kind of be abrupt and a little cut off. Like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. And so they really go for it. And so you kind of like that because you really feel like, okay, this person is digging me. Like I didn't give them my number or I give them my number. I don't ever answer the phone or I don't call back. You know, you play all these, I don't want to say hard to get, but what it really is are tests, right? How interested are you in me? How far are you willing to go to get my attention and to be in my company? And I know it sounds like a lot and it sounds like too much and don't nobody have time for that. I get it. But this is really the brain processing how to interact with another partner. Now, why childhood makes a difference in this is because usually there was some instability during childhood. Now, there's a list of what that instability could be. But what I will say is definitely abandonment issues and there's definitely rejection issues. And so when you are dealing with that as a young child, you learn to become self-sufficient. You learn to just take matters in your own hands and handle it so that you don't have to be disappointed. You don't have to be let down. So this could be the little girl or little boy who sits on the step and waits for the dad to show up that never comes. This could be the child that never got to do school activities because Nobody was there to pay for it or to support it. So even if they had a basketball game or a basketball tournament, mom or dad was working and they never showed up. So they didn't get support in that way. This could be a child that gets dropped off regularly to different family members or friends because the mom or dad wants to go out and party and have a good time. And so there's no stability at home. For instance, I knew of someone who literally would say, well, I can't hang out with y'all because I don't have a babysitter. And then it might be 11:45, 12 o'clock, and we're out, and they'll call and say, hey, my mom or my sister or whomever just said that they will keep, I'm going to just say little KK. And they will get little KK out of bed, in bed clothes, sometimes sleeping, sometimes not, and drop them off someplace or with someone so that they can come and have a good time. That is abandonment. Right? That is taking a child out of their normal habitat in the comfort of their own home and putting them someplace else that may not be feasible, right? Because there is the opportunity of maybe being dropped off someplace where there's other children and you know, maybe they're not nice, or it also puts you in the realm of being exposed because now you're in the care of someone else. And so a lot of things, as we know, other traumatic experiences happens during times like that. So again, because you were rejected or abandoned or neglected. Oh gosh, that's a big one. Neglect. Neglect just means, matter of fact, let's go to the specific definition of neglect, right? Let's start there first, because I don't want different versions of neglect to throw us off. Oh, neglectful parenting comes up. Google, are you listening to me? So let's just pull up neglect. So neglect says fail to care for properly. The state or fact of being uncared for. So this sometimes go for the latchkey kid. And I know I'm going to step on some toes. I was a latchkey kid. It's all right. Mama meant well. But if your mama is working third shift, or put it like this, she's not home when you get home and nobody is there, that is a form of neglect. Now, you may be self-sufficient, like maybe you might be at the age where you can cook your own food or microwave it or whatever it is. I'm a 70s baby, so there was no microwaves back then, but I definitely was a latchkey kid. And so I got home before my mom did, and I was responsible for myself until she arrived home. If I went outside and I played and I got into a beef with somebody, I'm on my own. There is nobody home. And neglect becomes more prominent in homes where it's only one child, right? So there's no siblings to rely on. There's not like an older sibling that plays the mommy role or the daddy role. So neglect is definitely a huge one. So what happens is that dismissive avoidants end up dating people who are not dependent upon them emotionally, are not vulnerable enough to give their heart and their feelings and their dependency upon somebody else. They're just not going to do it. So they're going to find the person who seems to be self-sufficient first. And then as that relationship unfolds, they're going to find all these little triggers that are not going to work for them. And neediness is definitely one, because a dismissive avoidant feels like, hey, nobody was there when I needed them. Figure it out. And it's definitely a selfish way of thinking, because you would think, why would you not want to be here for somebody when you know what it feels like to not have somebody there for you? But that's just how you think. And so when you select your partners or the people that you entertain, you do that based on their needs and your needs. And so if their needs supersede your needs, you're going to get rid of them. If they need to hear from you every day, you just can't do that. Like, you can hear from them every day, but you just are not giving enough of yourself to be calling them. Like, pride is not going to let you. Like, I don't need you in that way. I don't need you. It's really about what I think you think. I don't need you to think that I need you. I don't need you to think that I depend on you. I don't need you to think that you are my source of happiness. I don't need you to think that I won't have anything without you. I don't need. And after so many I don't needs in a relationship, that person is going to go ahead and find them somebody who do need them. So it always backfires. It's just like this chain reaction of events that's triggered by one incident, and it just snowballs. It just snowballs. So me, I dated anxious avoidant, and an anxious avoidant. I'm trying to find the most tasteful way to say it, but they are definitely clingy, very needy, can even be suicidal at times. They need affirmations. They need confirmation. They need to know that you want them and that you need them and that you're there. And they actually too suffer from neglect and abandonment issues. So here's where the trauma bond comes in, because they both, like the dismissive, feel the need to want someone to step in and really be reliable. The difference is that the dismissive is going to keep challenging you. Every time you prove that you're going to be there and that you have their back, they create another obstacle, because they just don't believe it. So then you show, I got you, I'm here for you, I support you, and then they create another obstacle. And you're constantly jumping these hurdles of proving yourself and proving your love until you break. Either you break or they create an obstacle that you cannot win, and then they break. They break the relationship off. Is it a very hard attachment style? It is. It is extremely hard for the people who are experiencing it. So the people who are actually going through it, it's extremely hard. Ask me how I know, because I have experienced a partner who is the same. So it's extremely hard to deal with on both ends, but I can't even say which is harder, because I've been it and I've also dealt with it. And dealing with it has been traumatic for me. One is because I now have an eye opener of what I was doing to people that I said that I love, to these relationships that never went long. Like, I had relations that were 6 months or a year or however it is. Maybe 3 years might have been the longest. And though you have these children because you have dismissed that partner and you're trying it again. And instead of focusing on, you know what, let me make certain that I am taking the best precautions to not conceive until I'm certain about this partner, you're just kind of engulfed in whether this is the person or not. And so precaution sexually kind of goes out of the window, because you've committed to the relationship and you're just so focused on whether or not this person can be what you need, even though you know that you never will let them. And it's a hard pill to swallow. I've been on both ends. I've loved a dismissive avoidant, and I have been a dismissive avoidant, and I don't know what's worse. So I'm going to challenge you to that. If you are a dismissive avoidant attachment style, tap in. I need you to tap in. I need you to drop that in the box. Tell me when you found out. If you found out today, when you saw this, let me know that. If you've known it for quite some time, tell me how you found out and whether you still have that attachment style, or if you're now a secured attachment style person. Let me know. Let's talk about it. Let's dive a little bit more deep into this, because we can break a lot of trauma and a lot of dysfunctional relationships and a lot of toxicity if we know the root and why we do the things that we do to the people that we say we love. So I'm not going to hold you much further. I enjoyed the time that we have shared. If this has been helpful to you, definitely like, comment, and share this video, and there'll be more to come. So I will see you next week for episode 2 of trauma and how it is changing adulthood. Bye, loves. Be blessed.